welcome to the Dancing Bear Enlightenment Academy Holistic Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Beverly, and today we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Sabrina Rudbeck. She is a surgical provider, twice international best-selling author, host of Providers Edge podcast, and peak performance advisor. After overcoming burnout working in the cardiac surgery arena, Sabrina is able to maintain a clinical practice while helping healthcare provider owners or healthcare practice owners to create a sustainable practice. Welcome, Sabrina.
Hi, Dr. Beverly. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Welcome. So tell us your story. What is your journey? How did you get started? Why is this your passion?
Yeah, I was, when I was little, first, I'm the only child, so only girl in the family of all boy cousins. So in the Asian family, it's very much of, well, you're a girl, have a good grade, good job, marry up, have kids. A constant question is like, when do you have, who are you dating? And once you're married, when do you have kids? For me, it's like, that is not my ideal life. That's a far fetch from it. I am way too much of the independent busy bee. So that's why when I'm competing with my own cousins, I'm like, hey, I'll be the one who has the most degree. So of course, 2 bachelors, 2 masters later, got into medicine. And I also wanted to do heart surgery. And people at the time is like, Sabrina, don't you know that's like one of those highest turnover, toughest, you're a girl. Why do you want to do that? Again, just because I'm a girl doesn't matter because I know what I like. I just didn't find anything else interesting at the time. So I placed myself in a place where I was just so excited. It's one of the best hospitals in the country for heart surgery and really in the world because we constantly have international patients coming to us.
Wow.
And that sense of pride of, wow, I made it. And the traditional way of medicine is you don't leave until everything is done. But we know there's never gonna be everything is done. Doesn't matter if you're practicing medicine, running a business, or even any other practice for that matter. And I start going into the round of, oh, why am I taking calls every day? And then I can be on call for weeks at an end, right? Because my co-surgeon or other people went on vacation. I have to take up the load. And then we start seeing our medical assistants just constantly changing. You have to grab this person from here, there, and you haven't trained them fully. They already left. It's just not sustainable to the point that I start getting sick myself. And I remember one morning, I was completely scrubbed in, just staring at my patient. I'm trying to get through this case versus any other day, I'm the one who usually coming into the OR like, can we play some music? Right? Like start trying to talk to people and get into the mode. And that day, I was not having it. I was just trying the best just to get through the day. And of course, my scrub nurse was taking pity on me, passing Dayquil and cough drop under my mask. Now, these are not even unique stories. Actually, many of us have experienced that. You go to work sick, whatever, and you still feel like, oh no, it's okay. But if I don't show up, it's going to be really hard for someone else to do it. If I don't show up, if I don't do this, no one else is going to do as good as me. If I don't do it, someone's going to take a way longer time, right? Think about that, right? Have we all said this to ourselves before? And I realized, yes, there's a high demand. The more I do, the more things people give to me. But at the same time, I did this to myself. I haven't really said no to things in my life. And I felt the sense of obligation. If I say no, then people are going to see me as too young and as too XYZ. And therefore, I start going back to my own root. Before I went into medicine, I did neuroscience and public health. And my thesis more than 10 years ago were on self-efficacy, the belief system you have for yourself, self-care, which a lot of people misunderstand what self-care means, and stress management. And I'm thinking to myself, how the heck what I did 10 years ago. And I'm still stuck in it, right? And I believe is that we all become such a high performers. And when you become high performer in positive psychology, we actually call that as a sabotaging tendency. We are constantly reaching out for the next goal, the next revenue, the next title, the next project I can finish. And if I don't get to that point, my identity is being hurt, right? We don't think of that in my head, but it's more like, oh, who am I? I have to get to that point. But no one else is chasing you to get to that, right? Like there's no bear behind you. And but we somehow feel the urge and anxiousness and anxiety and stress to have to get somewhere. And that's when I was like, oh, that's different. So I started getting my own self into different peak performance training, discovering what it meant for these high-level executives, business owners, hospital, organizational leaders, and even athletes. How are they able to maintain these high-functioning output impact, but without the burden of going down the rabbit hole of stress, burned out, or even couldn't even have a life anymore, right? What's the point of working when you can't even live? That's when I start to reformat my own team. So I started going at different hospitals I'm in, start changing how we run our team. How do we hire? How do we really think about what's fairness into the team? How do we want it to stay? And then start moving into the private side, because I see even more of a bigger impact. Anything you do and don't do has a huge implication into your patients and your team immediately, right? Hospital does have some red tapes. And I found that when we can optimize our own decision ability, our personal effectiveness, then we can look into the external, the practice effectiveness, so we can up-level everybody. That's how I truly believe time can work in your favor. We can gain back a day per week if you just know how.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So you started some, you had your private practice separate from the surgery or at the same time, or you started it later?
Yeah, so I always been in private hospitals, and then the different entities, you can pretty much have your own control over how you do things. With the change of when you hire, there's always have to go up the chain to prove that we need that position, right? And so that's why I say larger organization is a little difficult to work with. And when I start to pivot out working with private practice, we don't have that big boss shadowing us anymore, right? Anything you work directly with these practitioners, it's either a yes and no, and let's just do it. And there's no like multiple meetings before anything get proposed or implemented.
Oh, okay, I understand. Yeah, I've always been in private practice myself, so I understand. And then you started the host of the Edge podcast and Peak Performance Advisor. Talk about that.
Yeah, I started speaking a few years back, about maybe 5 years ago. I started speaking, just doing more continuing education topics on how do you really thrive and maintain your success. And then start looking into what does that mean when you thrive to be able to up-level your output in what you want to do. I believe it's not that we have a burnout issue. We really have a leadership and decision-making issue that we don't really know how to make a decision in our own life anymore. And we don't know how to lead our own lives, then we can make an impact with others. One of the things Stephen Covey wrote in his 7 most effective people, right? One of the story is the dad saying to the son, why is he not listening to me? And then the question goes, wait, are you hearing yourself? When you communicate, it's not about you just blah, 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 saying everything. It's actually understanding what other person, what they're standing, what they believe, what is their problem. So you can be the support. And doesn't matter where you are, like where you came from, maybe you experience similar issues, but how they position themselves is different. right? So in that way, is how do we support others? At the end of the day, we all work for ourselves and we work with someone. We don't work for our boss, for our partners, right? And be able to even tap into, okay, if I'm my own entity, I have to lead my own life and I can model the best way, then everyone will be attracted to me. And I'm able to attract the talent that's most fitted into my need. So when I start speaking in multiple conferences and podcasts, and then the big thing when you go into professional speaking round is have your own stages.
Mhm.
So about 2 years ago, I started running my podcast. The first season was The Powerful and Passionate. And then we just relaunched called The Provider's Edge, truly focusing on how private practice owners are able to learn from each other's story, the wins and the hardships that we're able to overcome, and how do we up level from different area of business. And that's really becoming the true disruptor in the healthcare space and change the status quo that we feel like, oh, burnout is acceptable, or turnover is acceptable, or you are only limited for 10-15 minutes with your patient and they can't come in for X amount a month, and oh well, right? Like that's not acceptable. So how can we create better patient satisfaction, better access, better us, so we don't feel like we're constantly working on our business and in the grind of the business, but actually are simply just the entity of a provider, of a leader for our community, but also have a way of life on our own.
So how do you help people make better decisions? Do you have a way of doing that?
That is a whole lot of topics, right? And like decision making, we all make decisions every day, but we are trapped with internal expectation, or we felt like what we thought it could be, right? Our gears are constantly running and trying to make predicament. At the same time, external expectation, what people want us to do, request us to do, and then the list become longer, and longer. And someone who recently I interviewed me on a entrepreneur show about, oh, what would you recommend, making a to-do list or only making certain goals in a day? My answer was, don't even make a to-do list, make a to-not-do list. Like, understand what you shouldn't be doing. And also, when you do want to do something, it's about time blocking. And the time blocking is 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And also use a desk timer, something like this that you can just flip. If you have to grab your phone, guess what? Our trigger, our brain, our curiosity thing is like, whoa, there's a message. Ooh, there's a social media alert. Ooh, there's an email. And then you just gone into the rabbit hole of another 5-10 minutes and you didn't even do anything that you meant to do. So desktop clock is perfect. And we know by neuroscience studies, our human concentration time is really just about 20 minutes. So if you block for 20 to 30 minutes block with a non-negotiable 5 minutes break. So I just say, right, you think this project is going to take you 35 minutes to do, and the alarm rang, you're like, no, it's okay. Let me just work a little longer. Guess what? No, because when was the last time you just told yourself 5 more minutes and it become a whole hour? Yeah. Right?
All the time.
That 5 minutes, you probably finish in one email another. If you research something, there's 10 more browsers you're already been opening up. So no, it will never gonna be just another 5 minutes. Stop it. Walk away from your desk, do a really quick reset, come back so you're more refreshed and more focused. And we don't want to do too much of these focus time just because we can get mentally exhausted too. And if you know your circadian rhythm, you can also figure out your peak performance hours, because there are only 2 to 3 hours in a day. Most people waste them. So when we're thinking about decision, it's on one, how do you cut down decision, first of all? One of the saying that I love from this 4th season is we have to systemize the predictable so we can humanize the excellence. All right, so let me say that again. We have to systemize the predictable so we can humanize the excellence. So I am a big proponent of creating system, whether it's automation, whether it's a certain type of thing that my assistants can do, my partners can do. There's a recording, there's a step already listed. Yes, you might take some time in the beginning to set this up. Guess what? It saves you so much time on the back end, right? That can go from both client acquisition, taking someone on board. How do you welcome them to feel like they're part of your practice, part of your family? And when they leave your practice, how do they feel? How do you help support them when they left and until the next time they come see you, whether that's month, 2 months, 3 months, right? How are they being supported during the time that you're not physically with them? So all this stuff can be systemized. And same thing with whether you're hiring new talents out there, and you can have a designated HR or an office manager who create these set questions, assessments with these people. So you have a gauge on fairness on evaluating candidate number 1 and candidate number 2, because not all people who look good on paper or having a good conversation means they're good for your team. And you have to be really think about how they match into yourself and into your rest of your team. Yes, so that's when we're thinking about time evaluation, decision making. How much can we systemize? Then we can think about, oh, I can actually just work on the things I like to do and that I am so good at, right? So what are these things? Do you even know? Surprisingly, most people want to ask them that. The immediate answer was, Sabrina, no, I am not making the revenue I want yet, or I'm already on my practice, or yes, I'm running a pretty good practice, but I set it up that way, but I don't want to have the need to hire another person. Whew, okay, so why is that? Is that because you feel like if you hire, you're not going to make the revenue? Is that feel like you're going to take too long to train someone? Is that because you feel like the current staff going to feel like some of their things going to be shifted and you're not creating the culture you want? But whatever that question is, guess what? How truthful is that? Is that really just like a false concern that you're creating in your head? Because if you haven't tested out, how would you know? And if you really trust yourself, believe so firmly, the more you grow, the more patient you can help, the more impact you can create, right? And if you believe in that, then it gives you more enlightenment to say, I can do this. If I don't let myself try this, then you might be doing the activities that are lower than your own worth. And so one of the things I'm encouraging everyone to do, I make my clients do this on the call with me. So I make everyone calculate out what's your hourly rate, right? So just like Dr. Febler, so when what's your hourly rate when you work with clients and when you work with collaborating partners and having a call like this, right? And yes, at this call particularly, we're not giving each other monetary exchange, but where are each other's support? We're each other's power partners. That means whatever you do going forward, we're exchange into how do we do it better? Whatever is your, let's say you have a summit event coming up. Oh yeah, do you need speakers? Do you need other people to help you run it? And then immediately I'm opening up my network of people who are expert in those things to already jump on board with you, right? We have to think about hourly rate also with the value of what that means in the long run, and also calculate on what's the physical value of this, right? So if we start doing things, let's say you're now accounting, right? Most people in medicine are not accountants, right? Most of us feel like, oh, I can figure this out, right? Type of thing. Guess what? When you just, I can figure this out attitude, it's a distraction. You don't have the background in it. You can thoroughly figure out, but you're gonna miss some of the bigger initiatives that can probably get you some tax return, deductibles that accounting can figure out. So losing money when you are doing it yourself versus hiring someone. Besides, let's just say, make things more easy. Your hourly rate is 100. Most of us are a lot higher than that. But if it's 100 and you hire an accountant who's $50 for that hour, you just lost $50 if you're doing a value that's worth only $50. And versus if you use that same hour to do the type of work that you can gain $100. Have you thought about that? Like, you're gaining so much more in the long run than just seeing the short term giving something away. So that's how we combat these distractions type of tasks. And then something that's what's called disinterest are things you are good at. Let's say you're really good at interviewing your new staff member because you're so personable, that's just your natural, but you actually don't like to do it. You're good. You get good at figure things out, figure whether people lie to you or not, figure out how they are a problem solver. But guess what? That type of work can also be delegated to an office staff, right? Even a senior member on your team or an office manager. You don't even have to have your own HR team when you're small. And if you do more of that same thing that you don't like to do, it also becomes a dread. It cuts away from the things you love to do that give you the biggest movement in your career and in your life. And then the worst is when people say, Sabrina, I just spend 80% of things doing things I don't like to do. Like, what? Why do we have to keep giving ourselves excuses of, oh, I have to? No, that's just what we tell ourselves are not necessarily have to. If it really have to, you probably can delegate it to someone.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. What you're saying is it's better to be an entrepreneur than a solopreneur. Solopreneurs
Yes.
do everything themselves. Entrepreneurs delegate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even you just have one assistant is better than zero.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. So do you have effective ways to cut down decision fatigue?
Yes, some people might have heard the concept called freedom compass. So I mentioned a little bit earlier. So a freedom compass for us who are very logical thinker, right? We wanted to have a way to do things that we can duplicate. So a freedom compass means I would love you to understand what freedom means to you, right? Does that mean freedom time, people, location, or the different tasks? Right? So what does that freedom truly mean to you? And then if we're looking at specific, the thing that we have to do part, I mentioned a little earlier about the distraction, disinterest, right? So there are actually 4 categories. It's called the desire zone, the disinterest zone, the distraction zone, and the driveful zone, right? So
what zone?
The driveful zone, like things you dread about, you don't like, it feels discouraged.
Zone. Okay. It sounded like you were saying dryful. Dreadful. Okay, got it.
And so desire zone is where we should be spending 80% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
However, in reality, most people are doing the opposite. They do like that, right? They go into that discouragement, driveful things where they don't like to do, they have no interest of doing, and they have no specialty in doing. And what about distraction? Distraction means things you feel like, ooh, it might be interesting. I can figure this out. Let me just go down, like learn about it. Mm-hmm. But you're going to take hours upon hours to perfect it. And guess what? Most of us who are high performer has the perfection tendency, right? Being like, oh no, let me just do it this way, that way, this way. How many hours have gone by? And the disinterest is what you have the talent, you have the skill to do, where people constantly coming to you to ask you to do this, but you don't like it. Despite that you can do this in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but every single 5-10 minutes add up, right? So it's really robbing your time instead of producing your time. Mm-hmm. So freedom compass come down to staying in and allowing yourself to stay in the area that you're so good at, your passion, and you're proficient, right? So something you're really good at and you love to do. It has to be both. That can create momentum going forward. Because the distraction, even though you might have some kind of interest in the beginning, when you're not getting the result you want, guess what our brain tells us? We start judging ourselves. How the heck this taking so long? I can't believe I can't figure this thing out. Small things like creating a website. Oh yeah, we can figure out, right? And then it's not looking exactly the way. This font is not doing right. I can't click through this. You get all flustered. Oh no, right? Going down the bad rabbit hole. And therefore, we really have to be honest. So I also lead my client go through all 4 areas. So one of them actually runs 5 practices, and one is the primary care, one is the neuropathic, and then the rest of them are chiropractics, physical health. So it's like a network of clinics. And when we have to do this, I'm like, okay, Dr. Nooney, let's work on this, right? We immediately cut 5 things off that list. And it's like, wow, like I just increased my productivity by 30%. This is great. And someone else runs a nursing education platform and to help people to pass their board exam. And same thing, he was doing all sort of stuff, even though he has a system. And we just cut his workflow 20 hours right away. Like that can be going to your VA. I don't know why you're still doing it. And so that's why we can think about how much time we can get back so we can focus on the things we need, whether it's our own physical health, spending time with family, or doing some other tasks, focus on your business that give you better outcome instead of the nitty-gritty of things that will kill our momentum.
Yeah, sometimes I think, well, it'll take me longer to explain how to do something to someone than to just do it myself. But if you set up a process, like you said earlier, then the person has a procedure that they can follow. And then when you tell them what to do, they just follow the process.
Exactly. Yeah, and these systems you can do as a handout, a checklist, a video recording. I use a combination of different things. I'm just in the process of hiring different writers that help me on my back end for my podcast. And I have the same template recording of explaining how things are gonna puzzle together. And I sent it to different people who wanted to pitch for that job. And all I said is, please review. Please tell me if you understood the assignment and explain it back to me. That's the key question. For most of us, we just go do it. This is what my instruction, but they actually don't understand what we're trying to say to them. So the key question is, please explain back to me on what you think the outcome is and what you think I'm expecting you. Then you can change course correct to explain it more, right? Because otherwise you can give them however long, let's say a week go by and they deliver something that you're like, how the heck did you do that, right? Like that is nowhere near than what I thought it is, because your brain, your vision, and their vision are not aligned at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's very true. I worked in the computer industry for decades, and I wrote very, very specific requirements for any program I wanted written. Do this, call it that. Yeah, you have to be really specific, or you're not going to get something that fits with the rest of the system. Lots of good information. Let's see. What about schedules? Do you have another way for streamlining schedules that people have?
It depends on what you consider as a schedule. As entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter if you run your practice or not, you still have the control of your schedule. And how people put stuff on your schedule, that's the way you can also streamline. Now, things like if you run an online business, whether it's telemedicine or you have, let's say, functional medicine people book into you, you still have these software that block out how many people can book that same type of schedule. And when you book that, let's say a half-hour block, you can set to have a 10 minutes or 15-minute break, just so you have a buffer to wrap things up. And other key thing I always tell my providers is that at least 5 minutes before the appointment is up, you actually bring it to your patient or your client's attention. Hey, I know we talked about XYZ. We have 5 minutes left. Let me just go over something that we have suggested or we discussed to make sure that you feel complete. Is that okay with you? Right? So you put it out there that there's a time for an end. We cannot be talking forever, even though I know you truly need the support, but just give people that expectation. Then they know in their head, oh, things are about to end. Okay, we have to really wrap up.
That's a good point. I have the bad habit of spending too much time with clients. Oh, I've got a half hour for the next one. I can keep talking. Yeah,
right, but then that
point.
means you're a half hour, you could be doing something else, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that one conversation extend, then you're like, wow, okay, I could have just stand up and stretch a little bit, but now I'm like talking for the next half hour. And then I couldn't even send that one email that I meant to send to someone.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Wow, you're full of lots of good information and tips. So how can people learn more about what you do?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me there and drop me a message. If anyone wanted to have a coffee chat, go to sabrinarudbeck.com/hello. Most people work with me two ways. They either want like, I'm kind of just hit a wall. I'm pretty successful, but I'm doing too much right now. How do I get to a good flow again where I feel like there's no cap? Then people go work with me for 2 weeks mastery. 2 months of mastery, where we have a weekly assessment. I'm holding your hand to really see what's going on. How do we get you out of the barrier you're in so you can leapfrog into the next phase? Versus some other people is like, Sabrina, I just need to talk to you whenever I need to. I don't really need to have a set thing. I'm like, great, right? Maybe sometimes you have a partner that you really just need to let go, but you don't know how to have that conversation, or you have 3 projects going on, you don't even know which one to choose at this point, right? Or you have a new event that someone asks you to go do, but you can't figure out if that's truly meant for you. So no matter what that is, when it pops up, I do unlimited year-long laser advisory. And that's like unlimited calls, unlimited email support. And you can connect with me on that front. Go to sabrinarudbeck.com/focus, because we want you to be laser focused on what you need to do. So you have the least amount of time, spend the least amount of effort and time to get you the maximum amount of result.
And you also have a free gift for our audience, correct?
Yeah, so for people who wanted to learn and be able to hand off things, then you can go to sabrinarudbeck.com/hand off. So my top 20 things to hand off for your office staff, and you can save your own sanity.
Nice. So for those of you on YouTube, the links will be down below. For our listening audience, I'm going to spell that out. It's Sabrina, Sabrina, Rudbeck, RUNBECK.com/handoff. That's a capital H, then lowercase ANDOFF. SabrinaRudbeck.com/handoff with a capital H. Very good. Do you have any closing comments for us?
Oh yeah, I always love to say you have to say no to almost everything. Then you can say heck yes to the only thing that truly matters.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. It was really a pleasure talking to you. And remember, everyone, to be the light you want to see in the world.